Welcome to the Deep Dive. Have you ever been in, say, a team project, or maybe your workplace, even just a club, and thought, man, there has to be a better way to get things done here?
Oh, absolutely. It's a really common feeling.
Yeah, it is. Well, today our mission is basically to show you that the answer is a definite yes. We've been digging into a whole stack of sources to really explore the core principles of management. We want to help you unpack how things actually get done through, the efforts of other people.
That's right. And while management can sometimes feel like an art, maybe intuitive,
hmm
there's also a real science to it. There are these core principles that give you a solid framework for understanding how individuals, groups, even whole organizations really work. We're focusing today on what's often called the POLC framework. So planning, organizing, leading, and controlling.
POLC. Okay.
Yeah, and these aren't just, academic terms. They're the actual essential things managers do every day to, well, achieve their goals.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's really explore what makes an organization tick, right? From the big picture strategy down to, what each person is doing. I think you might be surprised at some of the insights here, how even small tweaks can make a big difference. So at its heart, management is, like you said, getting things done through others. But how does that actually happen? What's the mechanism there?
It really comes down to those four core functions we mentioned: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. POLC. Now, a manager's day. It can feel, well, pretty fragmented, even chaotic sometimes.
Sure.
But these functions give us a really useful way to classify the activities that actually drive success.
Okay, let's start with planning. That feels like where everything begins, setting the direction, right?
Absolutely. Planning is all about setting objectives, clear goals, and then figuring out the course of action to actually achieve them. It means managers need to be really aware of what's going on outside, the economy, competitors, what customers want, and then try to forecast future conditions.
Right, that forecasting part sounds a bit like guesswork. Or is it more structured?
Oh, it's definitely systematic, not just guessing. Our sources describe it as, well, a multi-step process. You
Yeah.
start with environmental scanning, understanding where you are now.
Yeah.
Then you forecast. You set clear objectives. You identify and evaluate different ways to get there.
Okay.
Then you make decisions, lay out the steps, implement the plan, and this is key, constantly evaluate and correct course as you go.
Like steering a ship, constantly adjusting.
Exactly. It's an ongoing cycle.
And I guess the plans themselves can look pretty different depending on the time frame.
Precisely. You've got strategic planning. That's the big picture, long-term view, often 3 years or more. Top management stuff. Think about the whole organization's mission.
Okay.
Then there's tactical planning. That's more intermediate, maybe 1 to 3 years. Often middle managers figuring out how to execute the strategy.
Got it.
And finally, operational planning. Short range, less than a year. This is the nitty-gritty, the specific action steps needed day to day to support the bigger plans.
Mission, campaigns, daily tasks. Makes sense. So once you've got this plan, you need to actually, well, organize things to make it happen. That's the O in POLC. What does organizing really involve? Is it just drawing an org chart?
Huh? Well, the org chart is part of it, but organizing is much more. It's about developing the actual structure of the organization and allocating your human resources, your people, to achieve those objectives you set in the planning phase. It involves decisions about organizational design, how are efforts coordinated, who reports to whom, how do departments interact. That's the architecture.
The architecture of work. I like that. So it's not just boxes, but how they connect and function together.
Exactly right. And it also includes job design, deciding the specific duties and responsibilities for each role.
Mm.
Now, traditionally, this often meant really narrow specialization. Think, Charlie Chaplin in modern times, just doing one tiny repetitive task.
Right, the assembly line model.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
while that can be efficient in some ways, our sources are clear. Too much specialization can lead to, well, lower job satisfaction, burnout, people calling in sick more often.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because the modern view seems to push way beyond just efficiency, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Many companies today are trying to balance that specialization with things like empowerment, job enrichment, making jobs more meaningful, and fostering teamwork. Take HUI Manufacturing. They're a custom sheet metal fabricator. They actually got rid of traditional departments altogether.
Really?
Yeah. They're focused entirely on customer needs.
Mm.
They use these daily team huddles to make sure every single employee really understands the customer they're working for. It's a great example of evolving how you organize work.
That's fascinating. Okay, so you've planned, you've organized, now you need to get people moving in the right direction. That brings us to L, leading.
It does.
Yeah.
And leading is really about the social and often informal influence you use to inspire people to take action. If managers are also effective leaders, their teams aren't just complying, they're actually enthusiastic about achieving the goals.
We hear this distinction a lot, managers versus leaders. Sometimes it feels like semantics, but what's the core difference our sources highlight? Why does it matter?
Oh, it's a critical difference, really fundamental. You might know the Grace Hopper quote, "You cannot manage men into battle. You manage things. You lead people."
Right. Powerful.
And Harry Truman apparently said, a leader is someone who can persuade people to do what they don't want to do and like it.
Ah. Oh,
And Warren Bettis put it simply, leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. So the core idea, managers might have subordinates, people who report to them structurally, but leaders have followers, people who choose to follow their vision and influence.
managing things versus leading people. Can you give us some real-world examples of how this plays out beyond just having formal authority?
Certainly. Look at Procter & Gamble, P&G. Our sources talk about how they shifted internally. They started actively recruiting and promoting people who succeed through influence, not just their position on the org chart. Good leadership there now means, bringing out the best in your peers, collaborating effectively, not just telling direct reports what to do. And it's probably one reason they consistently rank as a most admired company.
Interesting. So influence over authority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have a very different company like Google.
Yeah.
Much younger, obviously.
Right. Often topping the best companies to work for lists.
Yes, and they were basically built on this idea that work should be challenging, but also fun. Their leadership style comes down to a deep belief. Give smart people who want to make a difference the right tools and a supportive environment. They'll do amazing things. They foster this really communicative atmosphere where ideas are shared and tested quickly. That builds productivity, sure, but also camaraderie. It's leadership that empowers and trusts.
Inspiring rather than directing. Okay. That leaves C, controlling. This one can sound a bit negative, like micromanagement.
Yep, the name can be misleading, but it's not about manipulation. Controlling is really about ensuring that performance doesn't deviate from the standards you set back in the planning phase. It's about keeping things on track. It's basically a three-step process.
Yeah.
First, you establish clear performance standards. What does success look like?
Okay.
Second, you compare actual performance against those standards.
Mm-hmm.
Are we hitting the target?
Progress.
Right. And third, if there's a significant gap, you take corrective action. You figure out why and adjust.
So going back to the map analogy, if planning is the map and organizing builds the car, controlling is like checking the GPS and the fuel gauge, making sure you're still heading to the destination and adjusting if needed.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. And those standards can be financial revenue, costs, profits, or they can be non-monetary units produced, customer satisfaction scores, defect rates. Measurement might involve looking at financial reports, sales data, surveys, or even formal performance reviews. The key is just ensuring that all the work contributes to the organization's goals.
Okay, so that POLC framework gives managers a clear lens, but what about the people actually doing the work? How does their performance individually and in groups fit into this?
Well, that's absolutely fundamental. Ultimately, organizational outcomes depend entirely on what's happening at the individual and the team level. That's, where the rubber meets the road.
Let's start with individual performance then. Our sources mention two main types.
That's right. Two key facets. First, there's what we call in-role performance. This is basically your core job duties, the stuff in your job description. Your productivity, the quality of your work against expected standards.
The baseline expectations.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's extra role performance. This is often called organizational citizenship behaviors, or OCBs.
OCBs.
These are the discretionary things people do. Behaviors that help the organization but aren't formally part of their job description or usually directly rewarded.
The above and beyond stuff. So what kind of extras are we talking about? Can you give some examples?
Sure. Researchers have found lots of these, but they tend to fall into about 7 common themes.
Mm-hmm.
First, helping behavior. Just altruistically helping colleagues, pitching in when someone's overloaded.
Okay.
Then sportsmanship, basically. Putting up with the inevitable inconveniences of work without constant complaining, being positive.
Right. Tolerating annoyances.
Organizational loyalty, identifying with the company, defending it, being a good ambassador.
Yeah.
Organizational compliance, respecting rules, being punctual, taking care of resources.
Being a good citizen, basically.
Sort of, yeah. Then, individual initiative, going beyond the minimum. maybe finding ways to save resources or suggesting improvements. Civic virtue, participating constructively in the life of the organization, like attending meetings, staying informed. And finally, self-development, voluntarily improving your own skills and knowledge in ways that benefit the organization. Taking a course, learning new software.
Wow, that's quite a list. It's easy to see why any manager would want to encourage those OCBs. They sound like the glue that holds things together. But given that they're discretionary, how do organizations actually foster them? You can't just put be helpful in the job description, right?
That's the tricky part. And our sources suggest that trying to force or directly incentivize OCBs can actually backfire. It makes them feel transactional, just another task.
Oh, okay.
The real key seems to be creating an environment of trust, fairness, and perceived support. When employees feel genuinely valued, respected, treated fairly, these OCBs tend to emerge more naturally.
So it's about the culture.
It's absolutely about the culture. People want to contribute more when they feel connected and that their efforts matter, not just because they're checking a box.
That really underscores the leading part we talked about. Okay, what about group performance? How is that different from just adding up everyone's individual work?
Group performance looks at the collective outcome. It's essentially the sum of the group's inputs minus something called process loss.
Process loss, what's that?
Process loss is basically anything that gets in the way of the group working effectively together. Things that inhibit good problem solving or efficiency.
Can you give an example? Like, what does process loss look like?
Sure. Classic examples are things like groupthink, where everyone agrees to avoid conflict leading to bad decisions, or social loafing, where some members kind of coast because they feel their individual effort won't be noticed in the crowd. Poor communication, unresolved conflict. Those all create process loss.
Got it. Things that make the whole less than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And that brings up another distinction. Is a group the same as a team?
Good question. Are they?
Not quite. According to our sources, a group is really just a collection of individuals. A team is more specific. It's usually a smaller number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, shared performance goals, and hold themselves mutually accountable.
So more cohesion, more shared responsibility in a team.
Yes. Being on a real team means you're willing to subordinate some of your personal priorities for the joint goal. It requires synergy.
So teams are really for those bigger goals, things one person can't do alone, or where you need that mix of skills and real buy-in.
Precisely. The whole point of a team is to perform, to get results, to achieve something together. And the best managers are skilled at taking a group and molding it into an effective team. And critically, that involves aligning individual goals with the team's goals and making sure incentives reward collective success, not just individual heroics, if teamwork is what you need.
Right, making sure everyone's pulling in the same direction. Okay. Now, shifting gears slightly, when we talk performance, profits usually come to mind first, the bottom line. But you mentioned earlier this is changing.
It is. There's a growing emphasis on what's called the triple bottom line.
Triple bottom line. Okay, what's that?
It's about measuring a business's performance across 3 dimensions: economic, social, and environmental.
Ah, so people, planet, profit. That idea.
Basically, yes. While traditional economic profit revenues exceeding costs is obviously crucial, especially for investors,
Sure.
there's this increasing recognition that non-economic factors, like how a company impacts society or the environment, are also key performance indicators. This is often wrapped up in the term corporate social responsibility, or CSR.
CSR. Right. Now, is this just, a nice to have something companies do for PR? Or is it becoming genuinely important for business success?
Well, that's where the debate lies. Critics sometimes argue it distracts from the core economic purpose of a business, or that it's just window dressing, for show. However, the evidence is building that paying attention to the triple bottom line can actually be really good business. Research generally shows no negative impact on shareholder value from strong CSR, and sometimes even a small positive link. Think about it. Companies that pay fair wages and offer good benefits to attract the best talent. That's not just social responsibility, that's just good management practice that pays off.
That's a good point. It's not always purely altruistic. Let's look at some examples. Our sources had a few that really highlighted the nuances here.
They did. Take the Body Shop. They've built their whole brand around being ecologically sustainable, campaigning for human rights. It's core to who they are, and consumers seem willing to pay a bit more for their products. Partly because they believe in the mission, and partly because they perceive it costs more to be environmentally friendly. They've been very successful with that integrated strategy.
Okay, so it worked there. It felt authentic. It resonated. What about Starkist? They tried a CSR angle with dolphin safe tuna back in the 90s, but it didn't quite land the same way.
That's right. Starkist went all in on selling only dolphin-safe tuna. But consumers generally weren't willing to pay a higher price for it consistently. Our sources suggest a couple of reasons. Maybe skepticism about the claims due to past industry issues. Maybe it didn't feel as genuinely green or core to the brand as The Body Shop. And critically, unlike, say, organic food, there wasn't a clear personal benefit to the consumer. Dolphin-safe tuna doesn't taste better or seem healthier for me.
Ah, that personal benefit point is key. Authenticity and direct value.
Yeah.
What about a case where the social or environmental issue is the business?
Cascade Asset Management, CMS, is a perfect example here. They were literally created to solve an environmental problem: the responsible disposal of old computers and electronics.
E-waste. Big problem.
Huge. And CAM's success comes because businesses are willing to pay for their service. Why? Because dumping toxic e-waste carries significant risks and regulatory headaches. CAM offers a solution. Plus, they built credibility by signing things like the Electronic Recycler's Pledge of True Stewardship, showing a real commitment. It shows that tackling social and environmental needs can actually be a fantastic entrepreneurial opportunity.
So it's not always about adding CSR onto an existing business. Sometimes the business is the CSR. Fascinating. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. From the manager's toolkit, POLC, through individual and group performance to this broader triple bottom line view. How do the big concepts of leadership, entrepreneurship, and strategy fit into this whole picture?
Well, in many ways, those three fields, leadership, entrepreneurship, strategy, are the inspiration behind many of these management principles. You can almost think of them as answering the who, what, and how for an organization.
Okay, how? So who is leadership?
Exactly. Leadership helps us understand who guides the organization, who inspires action, what makes someone an effective leader beyond just their title.
Got it. And what? That sounds like
Yeah,
entrepreneurship, defining the purpose.
precisely. Entrepreneurship is all about identifying opportunities, solving problems, figuring out what the organization should be doing, what value it creates. Remember that Google philosophy: anticipating needs not yet articulated, then meeting them. That restless dissatisfaction, that drive to find the what, that's pure entrepreneurship.
Right. Seeing the unseen need.
Yeah.
And that leaves how. That must be strategy.
Yes, strategic management is the how. How do we make the right choices to capitalize on those opportunities? How do we achieve our objectives? It's about crafting a coherent plan that uses the organization's unique strengths and resources effectively. The roadmap.
Who, what, how. Leadership, entrepreneurship, strategy, it really does tie it all together. It sounds like, if you want to really contribute effectively today, you kind of need a bit of all three.
That's incredibly true. Look at job postings now. Beyond the specific technical skills, organizations are increasingly looking for people with leadership potential, an entrepreneurial mindset, strategic thinking. They want people who can do their job, yes, but also guide others, spot opportunities, and understand the bigger picture of how their work fits into the overall strategy.
What a deep dive this has been. We've gone from those fundamental management functions, planning, organizing, leading, controlling, to really understanding how individual drive and teamwork fuel everything. And even looked at how success itself is being redefined with the triple bottom line, going way beyond just profit.
Yeah, and by exploring these principles, hopefully you get a much clearer picture of how organizations actually function day to day. How managers try to coordinate all these efforts. And you can see how leadership, that entrepreneurial spark and solid strategy, are just critical for creating value and, frankly, adapting in a world that changes so fast. Understanding this stuff really empowers you even just to manage your own work better.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Maybe think about a team or project you're part of. Where could you consciously apply one of these ideas? Could you maybe try to foster more of those OCBs, those helpful citizenship behaviors? Or think about that process loss we talked about. Is there one small thing you could do next time to help your group work just a little bit better together? We really hope this deep dive helps you see the world of management, whether you're in it or interacting with it, with some fresh, maybe more empowered eyes.